Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Guardian. We are back, for the time being at least. Felt like doing a video today, so I thought, let's profile my updated Ezel deck. Since, this deck got a promo card, like a month or two ago. I think it was like January, December time. But yeah, the promo Azaltus, really, really good card. Changed the deck completely, well, for the most part. It made it flow better, shall we say. And I've been having an absolute blast with this deck, and this is by far my main deck until Rizal comes out, probably, or until they decide to support blasters with MLB to make it a little bit more functional, shall we say. I don't know. I love MLB, but it does feel rather outdated now, and I've just been having more fun with Ezel recently, if I'm honest. So let's get into it. So, of course, ride line, it's the same as usual. We have Criff, Gareth, Bowmans, and Ezel. You may have noticed that my the first three cards are frame rare, and it's because of the Japanese version, because we didn't get these in English, unfortunately. So I trapped myself to the Japanese ones. Of course, I will use the English ones in sanctioned events, but yeah, during casual play though, I like to use the frame rares. You know, it goes with my frame rare Ezel, so it is what it is. Gareth is going to search you the King of Beasts order when you ride on top of it with your Bowmans, and then Bowmans will discard a card to allow you to superior ride into Blond Ezel. So, yeah, simple stuff. So, we'll move on over into the main deck. So, of course, we have the main man himself, Blond Ezel, which you're playing 3 extra copies of. Yes, I got a playset of the frame rares, which I'm really happy about because Ezel's one of my favorite units in the game, and if I'm ever going to splash out on anything, it's going to be either, blasters or it's going to be Ezel in some way or form, right? Gold Paladins. Ezel's really cool. Of course, you can only ride Ezel cards, period. So if they want to make a Platinum Ezel in the future at some point, maybe so. But the two main skills is the first one is at the beginning of your ride phase. If you've got 3 or less units on your field, you can Soul Blast 1, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, call a unit from among them to your rearguard circle, and then put the rest of the bottom of your deck. You do not shuffle, alright? Don't shuffle the deck. There's with Gold Paladins, you have a tendency to either put them to the bottom and then you don't shuffle, or you put them back in the deck and you do shuffle. Try to remember that. Blond Ezel Soul Blast skill, put them to the bottom of the deck, the ones you don't want, and then leave them there. But that's fine, because you're going to be shuffling the deck later anyway, so it's not you're not going to see them again. So, yeah. But basically with this skill, it just allows us to refill the board up, basically, during our turns. So, really solid. And the main skill, of course, is when it attacks, we can counterblast, look at top 7 cards of our deck, call up to 2 units from among them to open rearguard circle, and then Ezel gets 10,000 power for that battle as well. So, pretty sick. It actually makes the deck kind of fun because you have to utilize units that can remove themselves from the field so that Ezel can then call stuff to them. And you can get 5 attacks off in this deck rather easily. Something that I wish MLB could do. Alas, we have Blond Ezel here, and we are doing it with this deck instead. So it is what it is. Blond Ezel, really, really cool. So playing 3 copies of that in the main deck for the Persona Ride. And of course, we do have the 1 Gradle for the extra Persona Ride. Because Persona Ride's just really important in this deck, especially for multi-attack purposes. But also, you really need to see the Personas early, because since you're going to be hitting grade 3 on your turn 2, technically, because of Bowmans, you need to see the Persona Rides faster. So this deck needs a lot of filtering and a lot of ways to get to them, to get to your hand. Which is some pretty neat interactions when we get to some of the other cards on the deck, which I'll explain. So, remaining grade 3s we have is 2 copies of the Ezel order, of course, the King of Beasts, and we also have 2 copies of Sargis as well. Quite happy with these ratios. The reason I'm only doing 2 of the Ezel order is because we can't particularly search it outside of Gareth, so you have to draw it at that point, and running like multiples of an order is a bit iffy at times, but also, the main reason in this deck is that we do have the Uplifting Hymn package in this deck with Kadungan, which is able to give us access to an order that we can use, which then allows us to use other cards in our deck that need orders to activate or just benefit in general from the effects. So, So 2 copies of this just because we search one with Gareth anywhere, and the second copy is just reassurance that we can always get it, and just it's generically useful, right? A top 7 check, and then the unit that you call gets 5k. Pretty good for just making those numbers up as well. And then we have the 2 Sarges. Sarges, I like to pick on a little bit because he can sometimes be a little awkward in the deck, but as long as you're putting him in the columns where your din drains are, you should be fine, because then you can just get rid of it and then keep your 5 attacks for the multi-attack, and yeah, he won't cause too many problems. But Sargeus is just too good for the deck, because when you're looking at your 4th and 5th attack for the turn, if your opponent gets any defensives on the 1st to the 3rd attack, Sargeus will come down later from Ezel's skill and just see a defensive trigger and go, okay, I just get huge now. And yeah, it costs a counterblast, but just the continuous skill, making it 23, like, baseline, is really nice. And also, it does have that shield value on it as well. So on a defensive turn, if your opponent has a trigger from their drive check, you can use this as a 10k shield, which is nice to have in the deck as well. So it's got a bit of versatility. But yeah, Sargeus is also a Soul Charger as well, technically, since he does check the top of the deck. You can put that into Soul or keep it on the top. It's up to you. But if it's something you don't mind Soul Charging, it can give you some resources that you could use later on. And Soul is definitely something that we can definitely put to use in this deck. There's a fair few things that Soul Blast. So yeah, that's it for the grade 3s. So we'll move on over to the grade 2s. So the first grade 2 I have to talk about is 4 copies of Tearfault, because with this deck, we have access to order cards, of course. With the King of Beasts order, there's also the Uplifting Him order, which we can recycle as well. So this card has a lot of potential to be live a lot of the time. And honestly, just a top 5 filter for something that's equal or less to your Vanguard is great. Allows us to dig for just any pieces in our deck, really, since we're always going to be grade 3 when we get to our turn 2. And yeah, it also gets 10k power when it attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, and you have 4 or more units on your field. 20k power just for free, really, as long as you meet the condition, is crazy. Especially on the later attacks of your multi-attacks. Hitting those numbers like 43k, which is now possible, thanks to the power increase that we get through the promo card, Azaltus, is really, really good. And yeah, the simple fact that this filters us and it also just gets massive is just incredible. So yeah, I think this card's also going to be used in Brazil, I think. So I'm kind of happy with that, because I love playing this card in the Ezel deck as well. So 4 copies of Tearfault, and then we also are playing the 4 copies of Azaltus, which you just saw. Azaltus is nuts. This promo card is insane. Basically, when it attacks, as long as you're an Ezel Vanguard, you can do one of 2 things. The first thing is you can give your Ezel Vanguard the red text skill of when, well, during the turn, your front row rear guards get 5,000 power. And because this is a red text skill, if you have 2 of these, that stacks, which means you could have an Ezel that's giving your front row rears 10k power if you attack with 2 of them, which is neat. And then also, part of that same skill, Azaltus then returns to the bottom of the deck. So this is essentially acting like what Bowman's does on the rear guard, but better. So it's like, okay, but wait, there's more. The second skill, when it attacks, you could choose the second skill of choosing one of your back row Gold Paladin rear guards, and then at the end of the battle, you bounce it back to your hand, which is also great because, well, initially you'd think, oh, cool, that means I can, bounce my Dindrains back and protect them. That's pretty neat. If you're playing Silver Fang Witch, you could bounce that back to your hand, call it next turn, get another draw. That's kind of neat. Now, the funny utility this card has is when it comes to your Persona Rides, because if you find any kind of filtering piece, such as your Tearfault or maybe the King of Beasts order, like, your filter cards essentially help you dig for something like your Persona Ride. You could put this in the back row and bounce it back with Azaltus to your hand, setting up a Persona Ride for when you need it. And like I said, trust me, this deck needs it. But I will say it's not as reliant, because definitely before the promo, this deck was like Persona Ride or bust. But because of that power increase we can get from the first skill, if we don't Persona Ride, we can still at least get decent attack numbers from the first skill of this. So it's not like an end-all be-all situation now. But yeah, this gives us the best of both worlds, and it's fantastic, and it's such a good utility piece for the deck. I love it, and yeah, you definitely will be playing 4 copies of those. Now, for the remaining grade 2s we have here, we have 2 copies of the Cadwaller, 2 copies of Drilling Angel, and then 1 copy of the Uplifting Hymn. So, with these have particular roles in the deck. So the Cadwaller, of course, is just another Mirage unit that can get itself off the rearguard for Ezel to then call more rearguards too. It also helps refill hand as well, which I like, because one thing in this deck is that it pluses a lot by calling to the board, not necessarily like drawing cards to your hand. So I do like that with this. But then also the Drilling Angel gives us more resources for the deck, and like I say, Soul Charge in this deck is appreciated because we do use a few things in the deck that do cost Soul. So having these as like a utility resource piece is nice to have. There is also a really funny interaction with Drilling Angel when it comes to your multi-attacks, is that if you end up calling this through your Ezel skill, you could then do something like, Soul Charge a Tearfall from your drop zone, look for Tearfall from the top of the deck, and then you could just outright replace the Drilling Angel for the Tearfall to get a better attack on the board, which is really funny. So not only does it help you generate Soul for your Soul Blast skills, but it then also could potentially filter you into better attackers during the multi-attack stage, which is hilarious. And it's really, really fun to pull that off. Like, when I did that for the first time, I was like, oh my god, that's so funny. It's so fun to do that. And yeah, the Uplifting Hymn, basically with this card, you can Soul Blast 1 to give 2 your rearguards 5k power until end of turn. And then you may, as a cost, discard a card to then add this back to your hand, basically. You're not particularly going to be doing that part of the effect. You don't mind the power increase, but we're mainly playing the order for the Kadungan, which allows us to counterblast and search for the order card. And you may have noticed this is a grade 1, which means what we can do is we can call this on our grade 2 turn, search for the Uplifting Hymn order, and then discard this card to then Superior Ride into Blond Ezel, basically. So in theory, like the way that works is that you're essentially counterblasting 1 with this to Superior Ride to the Blond Ezel. That's kind of how you're doing it, right? And it's great because it means that you don't have to discard anything valuable from the mulligan that you do, which means you can prioritize more so your pieces of the deck and things that you want to keep. Because the turn 2 is a bit rough because you need to discard 1 for riding the Bowmans, and then you also need to discard 1 to then Superior Ride into the Blond Ezel. So having this search target is pretty neat. And also the cool thing is that if you see this in the early game, it doesn't matter because you can still just discard it anywhere, and then if you see this later, it comes back to your hand. So you're still generating that card back. You're just not doing it through the deck at that point. You're just recycling it from the drop, but it's fine. And this actually has neat applications in the deck because you could give that 5k power to something like your Dindrains, and then when these are restanding, you're essentially getting 2 applications of that 5k from that 1 unit. So if you have 2 Dindrains on your board, both of them get the 5k power from the order, you boost with 13, restand both of them, boost with 13 again. Like, it's just such a cool interaction that this card has in the deck. So yeah, I think the utility that this basically provides the deck in terms of having a discard outlet for the Bowmans, but then also having neat applications with just powering up your stuff. Oops, bumped the camera there, sorry. Yeah, just powering up your rearguards and that is really, really cool. And yeah, and then also because it's an order card that we're using, it turns our Tearfalls back online as well, which is also something that's came up. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of this package. So yeah, I had to explain that a little bit, but it's really, really neat. I love the interactions that it has. So we are playing that. And then grade 1s, as we could imagine, we are playing, of course, the 4 Dindrain in the lovely frame rare, very beautiful. And we, of course, have the 4 Kadungan. One thing with Kadungan that I haven't mentioned yet is that he has a continuous skill of if you've used an order this turn, he gets 5k power. That is only a one-time thing because it is a continuous skill. But a 13k booster or beat stick is amazing. You could just slap this behind Ezel as a booster, and your Ezel's just hitting like a truck now. And yeah, having that constant power just keep coming back is just hilarious. And you could also give that power increase to Kadungan maybe, and then he comes 18 on his own, which is incredible. So yeah, but of course, usually I'll give it to the Dindran if that play comes up. But yeah. So with the 4 Kadungan, we're essentially just going to like use these to recycle this order over and over again and just benefit from it over and over. So yeah, it's really, really fun. I would recommend trying it out. It's made the deck very, very enjoyable to play. All right. And then the final grade ones, we are doing, of course, the 1 Elementaria and the 3 regular Perfect Guard. Yeah, don't really need to explain that. All right. Final grade 1, Cat. Yeah. Cat's just good. I like the 20k shield of it. The filtering is also nice. Could have some synergies there. We're like digging for a piece, and then, like I said earlier, Azaltus can then bounce Ezel back to your hand, something like that. It's a little bit touch and go, but usually I use this with the shield value. It's just nice to have the extra defense there. So yeah, 1 copy of Cat. All right. So the triggers, I decided to go with the blue OT this time around because I just value the crit that it gives. Just helps close games out, return something back to your hands. You can get shield value back. You get a persona ride back if you need it for the follow-up. Yeah, I just love the utility the blue OT brings, basically. And then for the rest of the triggers, we have 4 more crit with the Disma, and then 3 more with the Liverarch. Yeah, notice how I'm doing vanilla triggers here as well, because one thing with Ezel is, yes, although it uses Soul, the skill crit isn't really necessary because we have Sargis and Drilling Angel giving Soul Charge for us anyway. I value the 5k base of these because you'll be surprised how often sometimes with a top 7 check, you might just see a bunch of triggers. And I prefer having the 5k because at least with this, I can make magic numbers with my boosters and actually, pressure properly as well. So yeah, I much value the vanillas in this deck over the skill crit. And I went for 7 crit instead of 8 because I did want to put 4 draw in the deck, because with the deck like this, it's super reliant on its pieces, and honestly I just prefer having more ways to generate hand size. Like I said before, this deck can build a board well, it can't rebuild its hand very well. So yeah, the draws really help with that. Lovely to get on the defensive as well. And then, of course, we played the 4 heals, which this is my favorite artwork for the heal triggers. And I think these two actually are getting a reprint in the Luard set. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I like the full art version without the reminder text. So, mine are better. Mine are better. But yeah, that's basically the deck. But yeah, like I said, this deck has been an absolute blast to play. Absolutely love playing it. It is super, super fun. And I'm just looking forward to DivineZ as well with Ezel. I do really like Ezel as a whole. I think its art looks really cool, and the playstyle is looking pretty up my alley as well. And the cool thing is that it actually uses a few things from the Ezel deck, like Tearfall, which is cool. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile and the update to Blond Ezel. And yeah, that's all I've got. So deck log will be in the description below, as always, and I will catch you guys in my next video. All right? This is Guardian, signing out.